You are listening to She Rebel Radio. I'm Lulu Minns.
And I'm Mary Lobo. Today we're talking about shifting from disconnected to connected, and you can download Lulu's free toolkit that goes along with this series.
Overthinking, information overload, technology, trauma, menopause, and the extra workload we carry as women all have the capacity to disconnect us from ourselves and at times from each other. But I'm in the mood to turn the tables today and start with connection. I've just got back from Morocco. It's a place that makes me feel super connected. Mary, have you ever been?
I have been, and do you know what's really funny, Lulu? This is probably the one thing that we don't agree on, but Morocco is somewhere that I never felt connected to when I went.
Oh, amazing.
But it's because I had a terrible experience where I got food poisoning, but everyone in the hotel got food poisoning, so we were all locked in our hotel.
Oh, wow. There's
So
me
it was,
trying to turn the tables and talk about connection, and you're talking about feeling disconnected by
yeah,
getting
but I'm
the
just
food
saying that,
poisoning.
yeah, no, it's interesting, isn't it, that like what can make one person feel connected? It's all to do with experience. And
Yeah.
but perhaps I'd go again with you and I'd have a completely different experience and I'd feel really connected. But yeah, I have been to Morocco, and maybe I need to go again because I love mint tea and I love all the souks and obviously cats.
Yeah. And did you go to Marrakesh?
Yes, I did.
Yeah. Because this is my third time going to Morocco, and I was down in Essaouira, although I explored the Atlas Mountains. But the second time, when I hosted my first retreat in 2017 in Marrakesh, I also got what I thought was food poisoning. I was
Mm.
literally coaching a client who'd come all the way from the States, and I had to run to the bathroom. I was on my knees, throwing up at prayer time. It was a biblical moment.
Oh my God.
My clients had to put me to bed and tell me to suck up my own advice with the if you remember, our listeners, the self-care episode. And but when I got home, I found out that my sister's kids had all had a bug, and I'd looked after them before I left, so it wasn't actually food poisoning at all.
Oh my God, you poor thing. But it's worse when you're away. You're away from home, all your comforts, and it's well in a foreign country because if you think you need medical assistance, you're a bit like, what do I do?
Yeah, and I felt like a complete Westerner because I woke up in the morning not feeling right. I couldn't eat breakfast, and I went to buy a bottle of full fat Coke in a plastic bottle. And I just felt, yeah, I felt disconnected and stared at as yeah, in the middle of Marrakesh coming out of the Riyadh. I was like, I just need full fat Coke because I feel terrible.
They probably thought you're hungover.
Yeah, I know. And I was worried that the clients might think I was hungover and I'd snuck out and, drunk a load of gin or something. But what are some of the places that do help you feel connected, and why? And places that maybe you've gone back to because of that reason?
Well, I've got a very special connection with Paris. It's somewhere that my parents took me to for the first time when I was younger, and then I lived there for a couple of years. And so there's just something like sings in my soul when I see Paris on TV. I haven't watched Emily in Paris.
I was
Everyone
just
goes on
thinking
about that.
Mary in Paris. Yeah.
Yeah, I've never watched Emily in Paris because it just I miss it so much. Um, I just had a lovely experience there. It was a really important time in my life. It was like 28 to 30. Um, I had I went there because I just wanted to change my life. I wanted to have an experience that I'd not had before, living in a foreign country on my own as an adult. And I did it, and I made loads of friends, and I got a job there. And it was just really special time. And yeah, so that's somewhere that any whiff of Paris and it brings back all those memories.
You're there. And
Yeah.
yeah, no wonder you haven't watched Emily in Paris. You're like, I've been there and done that. I don't need to watch,
Yeah.
some young American
Yeah.
making her life in Paris. But I was talking about this to someone recently. I've really realized, and I didn't understand when I was younger, and apologies to any Americans that may be listening to this podcast. I know how much you love London and also Paris, that I didn't really understand this, how old those cities are. And the
Mm.
same with Marrakesh. That's why I love it, because it's like going back 400 years in time
Yeah.
with that steeped in so much ancient culture, which, America, as much as I love it, and I've been a number of years, and I know it's a hot topic right now, so we're not going to dive into the politics, but the last time I went to the States, I felt a total disconnection in terms of, I hate that you can't walk down the street, and I hate the hate's a strong word, but that real lack of history that's there. Obviously there's history there, but it's just not as long as Paris or Marrakesh or London.
Yeah, and it's very commercial, isn't it? And it's a lot of kind of like bye bye. You're being advertised to all the time. It's a different experience, isn't it? I think that when you come to someone who comes to London, for example, there's just all of the culture there. There's all of the museums. Doesn't mean there's great museums in America as well, but
You could just find yourself in the States having dinner in a car park by accident. I'm just not a lover of that.
yeah, it's but then at the same time it's so recognizable, you know, because we've grown up watching it that I found it quite exciting when I went to New York and I saw like, you know, all the buildings and you do feel like there is a bit of magic there. But I think it's because it's like the movies.
Yeah, yeah. And you know what? I was in New York this time 10 years ago when I decided to quit my job as a lawyer. So
Oh,
New
right.
York is always, I literally did it on the flight on the way over to New York. I was ranting and raving about partnership and I decided like I was done. So New York will always hold a special place in my heart for that reason.
Yeah.
100%. But do you know what? I also noticed when I was away that I do two really random things. And I wanted to discover whether you do these random things as well, or what your random things are, because they're rituals. And rituals are a really intentional way that we connect to ourselves, to each other, or to the places that we go to. And they're things that we do in a particular situation because it's custom for us to do so. And I've been really getting more and more curious about rituals the last year or so. It's something that I do with clients by marking the seasons. And, it's just really interesting. So, one is anywhere that I go, and this is probably only for the last 8 years or so, I take my little Buddha that I bought in Goa and I take a different
Oh.
crystal every time. Yeah. And I think it's something about, and as we know, women, sometimes when we're traveling by ourselves, it's a way of really having a piece of home and staying safe.
Mm. Yeah, and it also like yeah, especially with the crystal, you probably feel like there's some form of protection there as well.
Yeah, although I'm annoyed because I was in Essaouira in Morocco. I was like, oh, I should have given it a little cleanse in the water, but I didn't.
You have to go back.
Yeah, I know. I will have to go back. But this time, because I was, just taking hand luggage, which I've got better at doing, I thought, oh, you don't need that. It's tiny anyway. But I literally couldn't go without taking it. I was like, oh, no, something bad might happen. I've got to.
Exactly. But that's the
Yeah,
thing with rituals as well. You feel that if you don't do it, something terrible might happen.
yeah, absolutely. And then the other thing, straight away at the airport, waiting for the transfer in Marrakesh, because we were going up to the Atlas Mountains and explored the Atlas Mountains, which I've wanted to do for years and not had time the last two occasions, is that I bought paprika crisps and realized it's something, again, I have to do when I'm abroad.
Yeah, do you know what? I love paprika crisps and I have gone on and on about them for years. And then until someone pointed out, yeah, we have paprika crisps in the UK. I didn't even know. I used to say all the time, like, why don't we have paprika crisps? Like it's, you know, if you go to France, if you go to Spain, they're everywhere. But have you had a paprika crisp in the UK?
I have because there is somewhere down the road from where I live, but obviously I live in quite a touristy area in Brighton that, sells all that kind of stuff. But I don't think, because I think this ritual for me, my sister, my mum, and I went to Barcelona, I think when I was 12 or 13. I think that was my first trip abroad because my parents didn't have the money when we were kids to go on trips abroad. We'd go to Wales and see my grandma and to Cornwall, which is why I've got an affinity there. But I don't
Mm.
think they were around like I was going to
No,
say 20 years ago. Let's try 30 years ago. I don't think you could buy paprika crisps in the UK 20,
I don't
30
think they
years
were
ago.
around 10 years ago, to be honest.
Maybe it's
Um,
since COVID.
yeah, I don't know. But I think as well because they brought, we're going, you know, off piece here, but they also brought in the paprika Pringle, um, which is, you know, like it's not like the paprika crisps that we're talking about. We're like talking about the proper potato chips, aren't you? The paprika.
Yes.
Um, but yeah, same. I love them. Glass of white wine and a paprika crisp. But abroad, I wouldn't have them here.
No, no. I think it's that marking. Yeah, it's something different. So you, again, we're talking about rituals here. It's something custom for us to do so is marking that you're somewhere different because it
Yeah.
used to be. But the world's so much more globalized than it was. But what are some of the rituals that you may have? Not
Well,
necessarily away, just in general.
yeah, I think that wherever I am, I have to make a cup of tea. So if I go around to somewhere new, the first thing I do, I don't know if that's a British thing, but the first thing I do is have a cup of tea. So if I go around to someone's house, I like to have a cup of tea. If I go to a new, a hotel room, anywhere, the first thing I will do before I like even unpack or anything is have a cup of tea, and it almost like grounds me. And then I can be like, okay, now I can start visualizing this as where I am for the next however long. Um, so I would say that is one of my little rituals wherever I am, and I always take tea with me.
I regretted not taking tea with me because as much as I was in Morocco, you've got to go down and have a proper mint tea, which I love, but sometimes I wanted one in the hotel room, just in the morning.
Yeah, I always pack tea with me. Um, so yeah, I'd say that that is probably one of my little rituals, and all my friends know that about me, that I'm just a tea person. Um,
And did you do that when you moved to Paris? 'Cause it's more
yeah,
coffee. Yeah.
yeah, tea, tea, tea. But yeah, I did also get like an affinity for coffee as well when I was there. And other things are, I would say this is a little ritual of my daughter and I when in the evenings to wind down together. She taught me Sudoku and I taught her sort of like crosswords. And so we do a Sudoku together and a crossword every night to wind down, just to like shut out the day. And it's like, it's something we do before bed religiously.
Yeah, I love that with staying connected with each other. And it's a really good example of, doing things at particular times. Most
Yeah.
of us probably have a ritual, I have to read before I go to sleep. I've done that since I was a child. And these things are really important if we get too busy and things like that, that we need this stuff to ensure that we feel connected to ourselves.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah, 100%. So to stay, to be connected means to relate, attach ourselves to link or bond with, which yours was a great example of bonding with your daughter, where things are logically relate to each other, or there's a connection between two ideas or two people, or as we're talking about, but between our deep us getting a deeper sense of ourselves,
Yeah.
maybe a deeper sense of our purpose or that particular moment in time. Two other things that I've done this year that have helped me feel super connected. One is writing my book, which is going to be published next year, which we've already mentioned. I've been missing it because I'm not writing every day now, that I'm a bit like, I feel like I'm not doing something that I should be.
Mm.
And secondly, I went to a gig last month with a guy called Leif Volbeck, who was so amazing. I always feel connected with myself with live music. I grew up with live music. My dad's a musician, but he was like what I call a proper musician, like playing several instruments at once, including a harmonica, which my dad used to play
Wow.
with lots of musicians who played harmonicas. I tried to learn the harmonica as a child, and it just reminded me how much that is so important to me, that I make time for that connection
Yeah.
with myself. Yeah. How about
Mm.
you?
Well, yeah, I love the theatre. And I trained in theatre acting. And for many, many years, because I didn't go down that route, I went into journalism. I never really went and saw live theatre. And then, literally, in the last year, I've sort of resurrected it because I've got a pal who wants to do theatre and with theatre buddies. So, yeah, that again is something that I just feel myself and I feel connected when I go and see stuff. And it kind of gives me like a lust for life, like you're saying. It just really makes me, it reminds me, it's uh, inspires me. And I just love like stories and the, stagecraft and watching how it's all been executed. And yeah, it kind of brings me to life. So I'm doing that now at least once a month.
Yeah, I love that. And it's so important because some of you might be listening and thinking, well, what's this got to do with us maybe running businesses or leading teams? And, it is because those small things or those big things that we do that connect us with that deeper part of ourselves mean we
Yeah.
bring more of us through. And as you said, that inspired, we get our best ideas. So, I would love for the listeners to think about what rituals you potentially have that you need to bring back. And I love the word you use there about resurrecting some of the things that
Yeah.
do make you feel connected that you've probably let go with, as we,
Yeah.
yeah, as we started this episode talking about, the extra workload that we carry as women, hormonal changes, holding stuff for other people, as well as how busy the world is now. These can be the first things to go, whereas they're actually the most important things that we keep close to ourselves.
Yeah, and I think as well, just as, life gets in the way, doesn't it? And you just forget because you're trying to pay bills. You
Yeah.
forget all those things you do for love.
Yeah. And that's, such an important part of why we're here. And the depth of when I work with clients, it's like this stuff, pulling this stuff out and interweaving it into purpose and things like that is
Yeah.
really important.
Mm.
So, talking about disconnected, I think sometimes it's important to kind of pull out the threads of that word, which means when we're separated, detached, disengaged, isolated, fragmented, when things are like not fitting well and don't have a clear purpose or pattern.
Mm.
And often to stay connected with that deeper part of ourselves, which we've just been talking about, we have to disconnect from other things. So I've got a list, but Mary, I wanted to check in with you. What do you find it useful to disconnect from?
Myself sometimes. Although we're talking about actually, um, we're talking about being connected to oneself, but sometimes I feel like I need to disconnect from all the thoughts in my brain and from, the constant strategizing, thinking, working out what's next. Where do I have to be? What do I have to do? Just like, just stop. I just want to just have peace.
Yeah. Well, and there's an important distinction there of, yeah, we're talking about connecting more deeply with ourselves. And then on the other hand, you're saying to disconnect from ourselves. And it's that disconnecting from the 70 to 90,000 thoughts we have a day and all the
Yeah.
doing and the strategizing, which isn't, the deeper part of ourselves that
Mm.
connects from a heart-based level. And those two things are so important to distinguish that we all are the tale of two cities, of two halves, and we have both of
Yes.
those sides, and one of them is more dominant, and that is the overthinking.
Oh my God, yeah. And also, worrying about things and trying to fight fires all the time. I think that, yeah, sometimes we just need to, like you said, come back more into ourselves. And then that's where the other things that we do to connect with ourselves, like, you music, I'm theatre. That's where those help to nourish that other side.
Yeah, and also with the overthinking, and Ariana Huffington actually talks about in her book Thrive, which is quite an old book, but I do recommend it to those that are maybe quite new on a personal development journey, or even if you're not, it's a worthwhile book to go to if
Mm.
you've not read it. And she talks about when we don't have that space to connect, our
Mhm.
minds become like an overstuffed drawer in the cupboard where we
Mm.
dump everything and then you can't find the important things. And I think that's a good synopsis of what we're talking about here. Does that resonate?
Yeah, oh my God, I can really relate to that. It's like I have one of those drawers that I'm constantly stuffing more stuff in, and then, it starts coming down the back,
Yeah.
going into the cupboard, or it just gets jammed and then you can't open it up. I mean, honestly, yeah, that can be my life sometimes.
Yeah, yeah. And then you're like, well, I just need to find the cheese grater, or like,
Yeah,
where the hell is the thing that I need? And it's like that when we're, trying to find a strategy potentially that's actually going to work, or a solution to
yeah.
a problem that's going to work. But
Mm.
there's so much mess that we can't
Mm.
find the one thread that we need.
Yeah. Um, And you just can't get clarity. Like you said, it's just everything is a jumble and you don't know what to focus on first. It's like, where do I start?
Yeah. And then our critical self can come in,
Yeah.
which is another great part of ourselves to disconnect from. Although sometimes there's I was going to say legs and what she has to say. There's, sometimes there's
Mm,
something worthwhile listening to, but not
mm.
if it's, that bully. When I get that kind of bully, self-critical voice, which doesn't happen so much anymore, I had to do some work on it. I actually call her Louise instead of Lulu.
Oh, I like that.
So she's like a different person coming in, being a bit of a bitch.
Oh, that's good. I could call my Mary Rose then, which is
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, you can have Mary and Mary Rose, which is the nice one and which is the horrible one.
Oh, well, God, that's hard, isn't it? I guess it would have to be Mary Rose is the horrible one.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's
That's my full name.
yeah, and you can do a thanks for sharing, Mary Rose, but I'm not available for that today.
Yeah, I love that. You've told me that one before, and I really like that. It's like, okay, great. Thanks for your input. I'll
Yeah.
think about it tomorrow.
Yeah, yeah. I'm connecting. I'm doing my puzzle or whatever I'm doing. So just zip off and come back
Yeah.
later. I also find it super helpful to disconnect from the internet. I think there's so many strong opinions, false information out there. I'm a little bit concerned that people don't always know what they think because they've,
Mm.
hashtags and algorithms and all of that is a super important thing to disconnect from as well.
Oh God, yeah. And just being bombarded with adverts. You look at one thing and the next thing you've got 20 adverts, or you're talking to someone about something, life insurance, and the next thing you're being bombarded with life insurance. It's constant. It's like we're always on, and it's just being able to switch off from being having to constantly analyze everything that we're being faced with.
Yeah. And it's a real thing, isn't it? I was ordering something for my mum last year from Oliver Bonas, and it was so my mother, something very particular, like orange tiger. Um, it had a really descriptive name, and I was talking about it. I actually got so distracted I didn't order it and thought I had, but it was advertising it to me in the exact, words, and I'd not even Googled it yet. They just heard me on the phone. Which is why my phone is on airplane mode the vast majority of the time.
Oh my God, that's really frightening, isn't it?
Yeah, because I was like, oh my God, how's this thing come up? I've not even Googled it yet. Um, Also, I feel what's really important for those listeners who are running businesses or thinking that they are going to shift out of what they're doing into something is disconnecting again from the internet of other people's businesses and their ideas and what it is they think you should be
Mm.
doing. I think that's huge now.
Yeah, to compare is to despair.
Mm,
That's um what they call it, comparisonitis.
yeah,
We're just constantly looking at what other people are doing, like, oh, they're better than me, they've got a better profile than me, they've got better social media than me, or they're getting their message across. I'm not getting my message across, oh, it's definitely you need to almost, I think when you're in a business, you almost need to think you're the only person doing it. Like, because whatever you're offering is completely unique. So you need to come to it thinking there's no one doing what I do. So there is nothing to compare to, and not get distracted.
yeah, because it's really about having your. I'm so grateful I started 10 years ago because I think it's even more in your face now. And I've seen it and
Yeah.
I've had clients come to me that are going down the complete wrong track because they're
Mm.
they're looking at what other people are doing, or even, a lot of coaching. It's no criticism. It is to some degree, is, this is how you do it, and this
Yeah.
is what you need to focus on, and you need to niche when maybe they shouldn't be, and all of those things. And because there is no right or wrong way, there's only your way.
Yeah, exactly. And whatever you're doing, whatever you're bringing, is the thing that why people are attracted to working for you anyway, or working with you.
Yeah.
Um, you need to remember that is people come for you. People are looking for something, but then they stay because of you.
Yeah. And I'm just remembering the quote now: comparison is the thief of joy.
Oh my God, yeah, absolutely. I
And we
mean,
all do it, but it's
mm,
knowing when you're going down that track again, because
yeah,
sometimes it's when we're lacking a bit of clarity, and then you start seeing, like, oh, why am I not that clear? Is that's when you need to disconnect to
Yeah.
reconnect with yourself.
Yeah. And what you wanted, you know, why you set things up in the first place. That's why people always say, what's your why, isn't it? And that
Mhm.
can be seen as just quite like oh, it's such a generalized statement, but that's what it's going back to, isn't it? It's like, okay, come on, why are you doing this?
Yeah.
That's your why, is you. Everything's about you, where you come from, your heart and your soul. Um, yeah, so it's just that's a great way to remember to just to tap in with your desires.
100%. Now, my most disconnected phases were in 2014, and I had another bout in 2021, which is, you know, the winter phase of our 7-year personal growth cycle, more coming on that next year. And I was much better equipped to overcome it in 2021. I know I'll be even better equipped the next time, because 2014 was when I left legal practice and really
Mm,
had to put in those routines and rituals to connect with myself. And now a lot of the time those things are routine, you know, like yoga practice, meditation, being by the beach and all of those kind of stuff. But what have been some of your most disconnected moments, do you think, and how have you overcome them?
mm. I would say that probably in most recent times I've felt the most disconnected because I've not necessarily been happy with where I'm living and trying to change that. Um, and yeah, that has made me feel incredibly disconnected because I haven't felt like I've had a home. Um, and I've got to say, it has been really, really hard because one of the things that I think we all connect with is safety. So
Yeah.
if you're feeling unsafe, it's really difficult to sort of get that to feel balanced. But the way I've overcome it is I've just had to keep focusing on what I want and why I'm doing what I'm doing and try not to get bogged down with all the in-between stuff. If that
Yeah.
makes sense. It's like I know why I'm doing this, and I just have to keep focusing on that and not about the discomfort that I'm going through.
Yeah, discomfort's a good word. And before all great change comes a shitstorm.
Yeah.
And so it's one that I like to say. And, you know, similar to me in 2021, I didn't know where I wanted to live. I was all over the place. I've been trying to sell my house for a couple of years. And I was like, do I want to be in Cornwall? Do I want to be in Sussex? And in 2014, do I want to do this job? Do I not want to do this job? So it's those kind of like identity forming,
Mm. Yeah.
safety and security, that rootedness, you know,
Mm.
when we're starting to pull that up, it's a really uncomfortable
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. That it's so true. That's exactly what it is. It's being unrooted.
Hmm.
And when I'm out the other side, I'll let you know.
100%. Remembering those, you know, those things of staying connected with ourselves. That's when, as the
Mm.
Dalai Lama says, this is why we practice.
Mm.
When, you know, the
Gosh,
shit
yeah.
hits the fan, as
Yeah.
we go back to those basic things.
Yeah, and I was also going to say that, like, you know, we might think that we've got it all together. You know, we go through periods of thinking that we're okay and that everything's okay, and you can't imagine things not being okay. And then suddenly one thing can shift, and we just feel totally discombobulated, and it sort of pulls the rug from under our feet. And so that's why having the tools to sort of you know, to get back on the straight and narrow is why we need to, like you say, keep practicing, because just because you feel okay now doesn't mean that in the future something's not going to happen, that it's not going to require you to really dig deep.
No, and that's what these tools are really designed to do, to stimulate our listeners going, oh, okay, I'm feeling disconnected. What's the opposite of that? It's connected. How do I connect today?
Mm.
And it might be you asking yourself a really simple question like that. So before our listeners go, do remember you
Mm.
can download the free toolkit that goes along with this series to help you tune in on that level that I've just shared. And before we go, we're going to share 2 journaling tools for this week. Mary, do you want to share yours first?
This week, I will be the woman who lets go of self-disconnection. And I'm going to do this by allowing myself to not try to control everything. I need to just focus on the things that I can do something about, like looking after myself, making sure I eat properly, sleep properly, and do what I need to do to get through the day, and stop trying to control every aspect of my life because I can't do it and it's too overwhelming.
Perfect. Yeah, it's a bit like the serenity prayer of knowing the difference, having the wisdom to know the difference between what you can and can't control.
Yeah.
That's a powerful one. So this week I will be the woman who is connected. I will do this by journaling more. It's a practice that I used to do all the time and I've really stopped and I'm finding it difficult to do it. So
Mm.
I need to recommit to a journaling practice because at this time of year as well, and we're recording this is, November, and there's always a lack of clarity around the following year. That's all part of the growth path, the seasonal pattern. And it's a really important time to journal. So I'm going to recommit to my journaling practice.
Yeah, I love that. I need to do more of that as well. Rather than just writing notes on my phone, I need to get a nice book.
Yeah, it makes a real difference with our
Mm.
subconscious of actually, yeah, a nice book and a pen rather
And
than
a
on
good
our
and a
phones.
good pen.
Amazing. It's been a pleasure as always to our listeners and great to speak to you, Mary.
Thanks, Lulu.
You've been listening to She Rebel Radio with me, Lulu Mins.
And me, Mary Lobo. If you enjoyed this episode, we'd love it if you left us a review.
And perhaps you could share this episode with another amazing woman.